Hey all, it's me, Aki from Gallery, and I'm going to be playing a short game of Masters, and I'm going to be pushing, or in this particular case, perhaps the correct word is withdrawing my defense from two authorities in Finland, while I'm going to be recasting the magic spell I did earlier. But I'm going to change it so that the only people I leave inside for the first half of the thing, or in the part where I push everybody out, are women who I currently love or whom currently love me, instead of the women who I have loved or have loved me. I'm not going to be retaining in my field what can only be described as being negative excess. And that was one of the reasons why I pushed against the KG and Bell Dandy thing, because I felt like, as they are kind of like negative excess, even though they are positive people, nice background echo, negative excess, even though they are positive people and are trying to do good, because it felt like they were trying to choke me because of their closeness, and I wanted more personal space for myself. So I'm going to be pushing against two authorities.
Honestly, have you ever thought...
I'm going to be pushing against two authorities, and I'm going to be playing for a while to see how the world reacts. So once again, this isn't an order to assassinate, this is an order to push, punch, sometimes kick. But in this particular case, withdraw my defense from, and that's about the size of it. I'm going to be doing this only once. I'm going to see what the results, instead of doing it long enough to cause the outcome that I want. I want it to be a strong single signal instead of a repeated signal that sends what can only be interpreted as weirdness. And when I was watching the flight thing earlier, I got a distinct impression that we have too many doctors and police officers in this country, and that both the doctors and the police officers of this country feel so as well. So that's something I may change in the next game in a very short time, but for now I'm only going to do this. First assassinating, in quotes, that guy. Then seeing if I have enough manpower to build new things. I do. I'm going to be building an oil platform, because I'm still looking for oil in the country. I want to be energy self-independent. Oil well. Gas well. And the rest is gonna go to building schools, because they have been complaining about that lately, and I'm going to be doing it instead of building renewables. So that's about the size of it. Sit in against government anti-social policy, and the Association for the Alternative World demonstration against government's anti-social policy. This is because, as the leader of the country, I'm doing almost no effort to contact other countries or have an active political stance where I meet the various unions and so on, because it's too exhaustive to do with this interface. So there's essentially no way to avoid that. But on the spiritual level, it's a protest against, well, my antisocial policy. I've also gotten a strong impression that I should move my country more towards a multi-party democracy, because the reforms that I wanted to do are basically done.
The agent in charge...
Okay. Complete failure, and the next one is where is the union I'm looking for? truckers, researchers, student, national steel, railway, public service, potato. There we go. Police union. This is as close as you can get to the police chief. This is because every time there has been a serious disruption in our country, the military has changed its commanding officer, while the police have at no time during my entire gameplay had a, in quotes, funeral. They have never changed their police leader, and it has remained the same person all throughout. And I'm striking against the police officer is also has been unable to prevent what can only be described as a severe division in our society, even though it's the responsibility of the police to prevent exactly that kind of division from forming. And they are in fact curbing civil war by their very strong support of Greens and their very strong attack on the nationalists. So I want to give them a message that I'm removing my defenses from them, and that should be sufficient for now. And as to the other part, I wish to do the same to the watermelon greens, the greens with a red on the interior, the communist greens. And I want to do this because they seem to be the main cause of the problem in the country and the main cause of the division in the country. And I'm unable to attack them directly in a way that is productive. I could target the party leader, but that would feel wrong to me compared to targeting their main religion, which is the New Age religion. And I have some degree of experience in targeting the New Age community in a way that seems to work in my favor.
Sure.
So I'm going to be targeting the New Age community. And once again, I'm only telling that I'm withdrawing my support from them instead of...
The operation is
There we
finished.
go. The police chief went down on the first one instead of putting up any kind of resistance. This is a very positive sign. The sit-in also ends at the same time. This is a very positive sign. The next most important thing is that we have a zero taxation on alcohol, and it's causing a lot of road accidents. But that is inconsequential compared to the fact that people killed in road accidents has fallen from 374 to 230 or so, 245. And we have increased the speed limit in motorways from 120 to 250, while the reduction in road fatalities is caused by the fact that we reduced the speed in cities to 30 kilometers an hour and on trunk roads to 70 kilometers an hour, which is a significant drop.
The funeral will take place next week.
They have done honorably, so I will attend the funeral. This is because most fatalities happen on close roads instead of highways, and I have also taken a program to vastly improve the highway capacity of the country. The overall result is that road fatalities have decreased significantly. So their complaint that low alcohol taxation is causing road fatalities when road fatalities are going down like overall significantly is kind of like saying the next thing is really minor because you have solved a big issue. That's very strongly the message I get.
The theory that says if E1 doesn't like E2 and E2
able to approach the ultra-conservative coalition president of Russia, which is basically like the supreme police officer or like the supremely authoritative spirit, perhaps, meaning that our actions were so justified and so well formulated that we now have an opportunity to contact like the supreme police officer, which I'm going to say yes to and send them a single coin. This is overall a very positive signal. The sit-in ended, which is a very positive signal.
Our agents that have infiltrated this organization.
Because of our activities and greater understanding in the world, we now have an opportunity to strike against the Taliban and try to dismantle one of the terrorist organizations in Afghanistan. So once again, the trend of very positive signals in a row continues. Next little click.
We have a problem.
My sources. The crime I did against the Greens is going to go to the court, which is no surprise to me. The crime of saying that I won't defend them again. Keep that in mind.
I'm listening carefully.
I didn't touch them in any way.
How
I'm
much
just
would this
telling
aid
that I
amount
won't
to?
defend them again, and they're taking that as a crime worth of going to the court.
Our agents that have infiltrated this.
The ability to dismantle the Ukrainian nationalist organization, which is basically one of the fascist groups causing all this problem. So once again, yes, and a very positive overall signal. This is like manna from heaven for me. Then a long pause or a long calm period with nothing worth noting happening. The computer is doing a huge amount of calculations the day cycled in advance.
The funeral will take place next
the
week.
The Association of Self-Defense guy died. This is usually a symptom. Wow, I wanted to click yes and it disappeared on its own. This is usually a sign that they feel they personally failed something, and the Association for Self-Defense person dying at that point is quite clearly like understandable what particular self-defense right they failed to uphold and why the person in charge is resigning. They aren't like dying, they are basically resigning when they do that, and that's like getting away from the whole system, leaving the illusion, if you will, and returning to the real world. So they basically like said that they fucked up in my defense thing and they should have done a better job, and this whole thing would have been like avoided if I had like better rights of self-defense from childhood onward. We did 7th in the World Athletic Championships and we got just behind Germany. We performed admirably. This is a very good thing. We took out the entire Taliban in Afghanistan at the same time. And we
Our national company is a hit.
And we won the Edinburgh Music Festival. We have the best grasp of the note of creation. That's like the angelic choir saying, the angelic hierarchy saying that your choir has the best understanding of reality. That is like a exceptionally strong honor, and it usually happens in combination with a very positive thing that I do. I'm explaining very thoroughly what's going on now because of my recent interaction with the police force. My advisor is congratulating me on my popularity and a job well done. We took out the entire Ukrainian fascist organization and captured their ringleader. Afghanistan is congratulating us for our efforts against the Taliban.
I have just calculated that the index of frustration and
of quitting and being complete with this thing, but wanting to continue for a while, and then the Secret Service guys have anger because I tended to waste my energies and should have probably quit immediately, getting a good, like, positive, like, strong, long-term feedback. So now we're just gliding back into the base thing, and then the next one is complaining that there is a gap between the rich and the poor, which is true. But if you look at the numbers, you will notice that there is there we go. Population below poverty line is around 1/10 of what it was when I started, but it hasn't been going down for a while. So that's kind of like them saying the same thing that the same thing as the alcohol and driving person, which is to say that we are basically tackling small issues next, but that we should probably quit at this point. I'm going to increase the value-added tax slightly. Ukraine is congratulating me on a job well done against their far-right organization.
Incredible!
We won another music festival, Salzburg this time, and that's, in my opinion, the angels congratulating me on taking the hard choice of basically going with the simulation at least a little longer.
The bill has been...
Good morning.
President of Liberia is offering to sell us fish for something along the order of a 1% discount from our current average, and the deal is worth 27 million. I'll accept this automatically because it's better than what we're getting. I'm offering her coffee and she's accepting it gladly. We're getting a demonstration by the Solidarity Foundation because we are increasing taxes, and we are having popular discontent all throughout the country. Collective for Consumer Rights. The 3 main unions are forming a strike. This happens every time I increase the taxes, so we can expect this to happen in the real world as well if we increase the value-added tax. But once again, this is the only way to make sure that we don't accumulate debt again unless we absolutely have to. Alternative World is also protesting. Advisor is saying that the tax increase is against my standing policy, which it isn't. And another music victory. This is going very well. I'm getting like literally so well that the angels are singing a choir in my ear for doing a good job. This is how well it's going. Minister of Labor is saying that my popularity is undeniable. That you can hear the giggle on the background. They're now going towards court proceedings with my refusal to protect the Greens. This is kind of different from a private individual refusing to protect the Greens, because in this case I'm the head of the state and I should protect all my citizens. But in this particular case, I'm holding the police responsible for letting what can only be described as a criminal element on the street. The strikes have begun. And the army just received a new head leader. As soon as I said that I hold the police personally responsible, the army was like, if you have not been able to get the police to work in exactly the manner you request when they are not actively searching for you, that is a failure of the military, not the police. I will resign and a new military commander will take over. That's very clearly what the military guy is saying. Women's rights organizations congratulating me and saying I will remain the face of the combat for gender equality in our country, and that I can count on all of them and their vote, and that feels like manna from heaven, a very warm, like fuzzy, touchy feeling. I get a feeling of a lot of young girls holding their hand on my chest and having a prayer for me, like one of those situations where they pray for the politicians. I'm getting that sense from them, like a very positive signal.
But are you crazy?
Keiichi, the faithful friend,
You
are going
are
like,
screwing
"Are you
up the whole
crazy?"
thing.
Everything is going well except one very specific thing which Keiichi is absolutely and completely against, and that is this influence of the official religion in state functioning. He is absolutely and completely against that and will not shut up no matter what I say. So is my father. You know, you occasionally have to go through evil things, but you understand that this may not be like a good thing. The intelligence services are also saying that it's probably a bad thing.
It would be
The
advisable.
Greens are saying that I don't pay enough attention to environmental factors, and that is completely, absolutely ludicrous. I am reducing CO2 emissions and I'm paying for all the environmental protection agencies to be fully funded. I'm saying that only public transport in city centers. I'm ratifying the Kyoto Protocol, and I'm giving tax credits for car or home hybridization or using renewables. There is literally nothing more I can do if I want to be energy independent. I can start to dismantle coal, but coal is already less than hydro, which is a minuscule thing. And then I want to be like zero in any energy source. I want versatility in my energy production. And the only way to be energy independent is to build a huge amount of nuclear power plants, as is obvious from the growth in energy consumption. So I literally have no options remaining if I want to have energy independence. And if I don't have it, it'll be very polluting energies from others, because we can build very safe nuclear power plants, while the people who we could buy electricity from, if we don't have independent nuclear power plants, are not anywhere near as clean as ours, as some of the events of the end of the Cold War era like clearly showed. So the Greens are basically complaining about a thing that's not true. There is literally nothing more we can do. If there was, I would be very content to do it.
What's the
The
point
oldest person in the country is saying we're all idiots, but that's, you know, she has the right to say that. She is essentially protesting about the fact that we all seem to be turning back into the Axis governments, which she has every right to say, because even I feel like we could probably go without the religious power or physical political power. But I do feel like as long as religions vote on who represents the religion in public elections like they do in Finland, then the religion that has the most adherents should have their leaders somehow integrated into the political process. Religion should be, in that regard, respected in political power. So should science and, you know, other topics of similar nature, but they can't be simulated in this thing. I'm simulating that we don't have a complete separation between religious power and political power, because we need to have what can only be called a conscience. The Minister of Culture continues to criticize my mother for the fact that my mother completely criticizes my actions. but this is in essence incorrect. The Minister of Culture is basically saying that my current relationship with my mother is improper and I should work to improve it, at which I agree completely. I have fallen out of the loving family relationship that I used to have with my mother, and that is harming me in both my public and private life, and I completely agree with the statement, but it's none of the government's business. The oldest person in the country is saying we have to start doing things, and I agree completely, but this interface on this game for meeting people is so cumbersome that I literally will not have anything to do with it, so bear with me here. Update on the strike. I can do a thing on YouTube and Facebook and similar, but I can't do it with this game, so I have to have like my physical government apparatus in a different place than my government interaction with other governments. I have to basically be on gallery and continue to update my flight thing to have an idea in public of where I'm going with the other governments. If that was completely integrated into what is happening in this game with regard to these people complaining that I'm antisocial, there would be different kind of protests. But I do understand that they're protesting like regardless of whether or not I do that, and they probably still would be protesting about me being antisocial, or in other words, introvert. So I completely understand their point of view, but the overall message, including putting all of these things together, is so incredibly positive that it almost brings me to tears. Strike, I don't want to order the strike to disband. The sit-in is slowly worsening. The reason I don't want to order the strike to disband because as you can see, if I go to the right to strike, the right is limited and monitored. That means that you can't, for example, destroy your employees' equipment in a strike, which in some countries is accepted. And if they are willing to play ball with me, they have a strike and understand that it's limited and monitored, and don't become violent, I won't order the police to stop them. I will not order the police to stop a strike if it's legal. Let's go forward. The Minister of Education is saying there's a problem of not enough primary education. They're still complaining about the same thing, so let's build more primary education. I have built a huge number of these schools in a very short period of time, but it's acceptable. It will only increase my deficit by some small percentage. Military gets 2.59% of the state total budget. I'm going to be needing to procure some more weapons as this situation has expanded and I'm no longer quite as small as I once thought I was. I pictured my military being perhaps the largest in Scandinavia, but nowhere near, for example, the size of France. But when you now take a look at my military, I'm 27th in the world, so I'm very far from the top. And my economy is 3rd in the world. And the United States economy is also adapting similar policies to mine because it's growing at an enormous rate. But, you know, I'll probably be able to catch them nonetheless. I am in essence the country of all of the white people, including all of those people who are not the darkest of the yellow in China and not the darkest of the brown or black people in the United States, but everybody in between and reaching down from the North Pole who considers themselves to be white. Note, who considers themselves to be white. And even some of the people who aren't obviously white, like people who contribute to the society, as I did with the illegal immigration thing, where I sent out 1/3 of the illegal immigrants and gave 1/3 of the illegal immigrants nationality, will get to be considered white. I'm essentially that country. So I'm no longer Finland. I'm like a unified white country, you could say. And for that regard, my military power of 27th, while my economy is 3rd, is completely insufficient. So I'm going to be going with what I see in my favorite simulations and using that as a base of how much military strength I have. So I'm going to be purchasing certain military goods. I need at least a carrier. If I have 3 carriers, I will be content. Those should be small and usable for the launching of fighters, but not very large. I'm going to be needing let's see how many surface ships I have. I have 11. I'm going to be needing more. I'm going to be buying a full bulk of 20 of them. These will not be delivered anytime anytime quickly, so these are definitely not like military preparations, but rather attempts to become more balanced in my military defense, as it has been completely forgotten about in terms of my economic power. It has become completely decrepit by comparison, and when you are more powerful in military terms than you are in economic terms, you are in essence a bad state. But when your economy is higher in ranking than your military, you're essentially a good state. So I'm going to be remaining on the side of good by a long distance, but I will be taking the step to increase my military significantly. I will also buy a full bulk of submarines and a full bulk of helicopters and one more full bulk of fighters, and that should be about it. Helicopters 125 to be delivered 2029, 4 years from now. Fighter planes. (2031) and submarines. Conventional submarines 5. There we go. I have nuclear missiles. I have 45 nuclear devices, which is exactly half of the smallest officially accepted nuclear state. I'm fairly open about it, and I am not expecting anyone to send me developmental aid because I have nuclear weapons. But they are mostly to give the actual nuclear powers a awareness that the minors will continue to nuclearize as long as the major powers have them, and that all powers should dismantle nuclear weapons, which is why I'm still in the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which states that I cannot help another nation to build nuclear weapons, and I don't pay developmental aid to countries that have nuclear bombs. So overall, I'm maintaining a very negative view of nuclear weapons, but for the sake of our national defense and our way of life, I'm going to have them. This is similar to the stance of Israel. We're not going to be slaves to anyone again, and you guys have heard us enough, So I understand the desire to have nuclear weapons for the sake of national defense. 2 of the 3 strikes ended when I did that chain of events. A few more days until the situation calms down, and then I will quit. The sit-in has blown itself over, and after raising the taxes by 1 unit of value-added tax, my support went from 95 to 85%, and both the demonstrations and the strikes have ended. End of sit-in. It lasted 19 days. I will go forward by perhaps along the lines of a week, and then I will quit. I got $18.8 billion in debt at the latest calculation, so I will be required to raise the value-added tax again, so I will have to play 1 more cycle of protests at the very least, getting 65% support rating for raising the tax in Parliament.
The bill.
This has to be done to make sure that we don't accumulate debt anymore. I could jump the value-added tax by 10%, and it still wouldn't hurt us in an economic way.
Our agents that
we can now try to dismantle the Slovenian terrorist organization, which is basically the Western terrorist organization.
The current political.
We're in Slovenia because they kidnapped one of our journalists and tried to demand that we do certain things for it, and we went there and dismantled the terrorist organization. And we're leaving a couple of guys behind to make sure the organization doesn't pop up again.
As I
dismantled 44% of the organization. We are now getting 99.37% GDP growth year to year, slowly going down. Pakistan discovers the anti-hair loss molecule. They are now able to regrow human hair on people who are bald. How nice.
Our scientific...
We can spy on Iran. I will spy on Iran.
Do you wish?
I don't want to send the army to the sit-in while the only thing the sit-in is doing is verbal provocation. This should show my stance towards what I consider negative thoughts and people commenting disparagingly on the military things. I'm not gonna attack you just because you use provocation. The national debt is slowly increasing in waves. We should probably increase the tax by around 10%. I will do so. We're going to go to 83%. My support rating, of course, drops to 0.
We are in a debt. The budget deficit.
Anger, listen to your people, sit in, strike, 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 and the law on the value-added tax. I'm getting 0% support because it was a sudden radical shift instead of a slow general shift. The Minister of Labor wishes to resign, so I'm letting him. A few other ministers have resigned. 3 unions are calling for a strike. The United Nations is saying for me to intervene in the sit-in because it's becoming violent, so I will. There are 14 injured when they attack the police cordon around them, so I'm needing to intervene in that. Minister of Family is resigning. They are commenting that the fact that I'm having a reduced wage for myself, which is something along the order of an average social worker, that this whole situation is acceptable. It's about double the size of the average social worker wage. 2.5 times the average social worker wage compared to where it is currently, where it is perhaps 5 times. Turkey is offering to sell me cotton at a rate greater than what I'm paying, so I will offer to half the thing, perhaps 600, and they refused.
Sure.
Offering them coffee and sending them on their way.
We are in a dead.
I refuse to resign, but I do accept that I will be thrown out of parliament. There is fire and blood in the capital due to the fact that I raised the value-added tax to pay back the debt so that we're absolutely sure that we don't get in debt. Meeting between the Prime Minister and Lebanon head of government. Our government seems to be willing to listen to dictatorships, and Boris Johnson has thus shown us his real face, criticized Ingrid Mielbeck, Minister of for the Treasury. KG is kind of Lebanese, so I know what this means. This is once again an attack on me having friends, and I will tell them all to fuck themselves. Y'all can go fuck yourselves. Civil war. If the situation, family committee is saying that I'm a messenger for their class. Strike have ended. Number of confrontations goes down. Strike has ended.
We are in a debt.
Not going to resign, you're gonna have to carry me out. Another strike, another strike. Disturbances in Etelä-Suomi, the movement for the environment looking really bad. Prime Minister, according to our information services, Movement for the Environment's militants openly support the protest movement and contribute considerably to maintaining the disturbances in Etelä-Suomi. This I knew, but it's very good that the game is actually telling me that it's the Greens. So it's saying exactly what I was picking up in the Astral and talking about earlier. Next news article. Christmas decoration. What says more? The most famous religious celebration in the world commemorates today the birth of Christ. Well before Christmas, the city has become festooned with illuminations, but more and more residents also decorate their houses, sometimes with exclusive designs like this couple of obsessive collectors who own 10 Christmas trees, 200 balls, 320 figurines, and 1,050 fairy lights. We are obliged to turn on the air conditioning because it's too hot in our house, he declares. I'm not even going to comment on what that comments on. Who has fairy lights everywhere? Resignation requested. The Minister of Culture is requesting to resign because my government is inactive. I let him because I don't want to force anybody to work for me. My support went from 27% to 100% when I accepted his thing. Escalation of the violence in Etelä-Suomi. Prime Minister, the organized gangs are spreading terror in Etelä-Suomi, taking advantage of the disturbances that have been upsetting the region for 6 days. The situation is very dangerous. You should announce the imposition of martial law, Prime Minister, Minister of Homeland Security. Okay. State of emergency, martial law, and a few on television. The disturbances have lasted for 8 days.
The disturbances have already lasted a week. Do you want to send in the army to restore order?
Do you want to send army to restore the order? I just said that.
It's
Application
done.
of martial law.
The army has been deployed all over the country. Our men have taken strategic positions and controlled justice, the police, and the media. Soldiers are on patrol at all intersections, and our tanks are guarding the main city's avenues. We are ready to face any danger.
We have taken over the police, the media, and the justice with the declaration of the martial law. That's what I mean by the fact that the situation in my philosophical environment calls for the declaration of basically a civil war, but the martial law would do as well.
Your television appearance does not seem to have fundamentally changed the course of events. That said, there are some protesters leaving
are
here
leaving because
and
of
there.
my speech, so it's always better than nothing.
The current situation is critical. I ask you all, led by your conscience, to measure the impact of the current unrest that is shaking our country and return to reason. We must stop the violence and resume the path of dialogue.
Rock Day, just 1 week before the festival's debut, everything's ready to welcome the audience.
But are you...
That Christmas article appeared in October. Troublesome mother, according to Foreign Affairs, which once again is a no surprise. Minister of Defense reporting that lack of government investment or interest in the situation is causing a massive protest. The army anticipated that it was able to prevent the protest from forming together. Head of security saying that it's a privilege and honor to protect me. Various different groups are holding protests and counter-protests, and the military is stopping all of them.
Our armed forces have gone into the towns in the provinces, and the first clashes have taken place with rioters.
Militants.
The situation is tense, and we are confronted with pockets of resistance entrenched in the ghettos. The disturbance... Our armed forces...
I'm going to...
My father is complaining that I'm having an incompetent policy. I'm getting a new head of army at the same time. My father is, of course, not really complaining about that, but there are some things he's complaining about in my policy. I wouldn't say that he's, for example, publicly doing so, nor is my mother, which is why I consider it a little weird, but I do accept the fact that it's like a metaphor. This is the completely wrong paper. This is marked December 30th, 2024, and it's actually November 5th, 2025. The Ministry of Defense is reporting that the fighting is heavy and they're having to send troops with heavier weaponry. And the energy industry is in trouble, which I know, and that's why I'm building nuclear reactors. Once again, a new army leader. They resigned quickly because they were unable to control
our scientific cell infiltrated.
We have the ability to spy on Germany's technological
development. We are in a dead end.
Also, I refuse to resign.
But are you crazy?
Best friend is complaining. The army is in trouble controlling the situation. It's going to take some more days for the situation to stabilize.
I have just calculated.
My secret service is angry. End of combat in Etelä-Suomi. The situation's under control now. That took about half a week of military law.
We are in a...
The espionage attempt on Iran failed. Minister of Foreign Affairs is complaining about my mother again. I could tell her to shut the fuck up. But I do understand her criticism. US declared war on somebody. We'll see in the feed soon who it was.
Our agents that have...
We can go after the total jihad organization in Afghanistan, which I gave the order to do. Salary for the Prime Minister, it's lower than most civil servant salaries. Not true, but I accept her, opinion. The Secret Service guy wants a new job, and we once again have a new army commander. Those are changing very quickly as they basically have
the theory that
various opinions of failing to protect the situation and things like maintaining the police control. There is a slight difficulty that has lasted for 28 days in the capital regions of the country.
But are you crazy?
So it's impossible to lift the martial law at the moment.
The funeral will take place next
week. Leader has died. You can see what that means. Once again, new army commander. National holiday. Hey, Pookie. Yes, I will scratch you. I feel like scratching you.
But are you
KG is complaining.
The funeral?
Prime Minister's funeral. We didn't get the situation calmed down and we died, so we're now controlling the next guy. We got the second place in the Formula 1 competition.
I'm listening carefully.
Meeting the ultra.
How much would this aid amount to?
And giving them $1.
How kind of you. We'll be able to...
Yes, you will be able to change the carpet. How nice, isn't it? Watching the carpet, man.
As I predict,
got 38% of the total jihad organization.
Our agents.
Sierra Leone is next. I will lift martial law, but I will keep state of emergency. So the police force alone should deal with the situation.
As I promised, the streets are safe once again, and so are our citizens. As a result, I have decided to lift martial law nationwide. Our country can now serenely resume its daily activities.
End of combat in Etelä-Suomi. This was a harsh combat period for raising the tax quickly. It's Venezuela versus United States, which doesn't surprise me much. I will quit as soon as it's safe to go down.
Honestly.
What are you doing talking to me, Mr. Green Man? You have no right to talk to me. You have become a watermelon. You have no right to talk to me. Switch to a blueberry and I will talk to you.
Scientific...
We managed to take out the Sierra Leone terrorist organization. Switch to a kiwi and I will talk to you. a spicy green, and I will talk to you. The president of Sierra Leone is congratulating me on a successful intelligence operation. Prime Minister is appearing at a national festival. I will now lift the state of emergency. There shouldn't be any more immediate trouble in the country, but if there is, I will reinstitute it.
The preparations are complete.
Preparations, and the church is asking me to participate. Welch. It seems no trouble is coming and the situation is developing slowly, so this has been completed. I fixed a lot of things and did a lot of very important things. I essentially proved that the Greens are the guys supporting the militants, and that the police and the alternative religions, which are my religions, have failed in both protecting me and warning me of this situation in advance. They have blamed Russia, while that is not the case. Or perhaps they have blamed the wrong persons, and that is not the case. It's more accurate than saying they have blamed Russia, for Russia is no longer red. They have perhaps... Yeah, I would hope that you get what I mean. So that's about it. It was 46 minutes long. And if there isn't anything else that comes to mind, I'll stop it here. And yeah, that's about it. I'm going to continue the military police flight today, and that's about it. You can read more about my government stances and how I do things and my foreign policy in gallery. That's all. Bye.